Hello, Bright Bible community. This is Monica. So glad to be with you tonight. So tonight, if you are joining me, we are going to be in Judges chapter 8. Which Judges, I have to be real transparent with you and say I am new to this book. This is new. There's bits and pieces, obviously, that I'm remembering and noticing, but it's a new book for me. So it's been exciting to read stories. I have one page in my, let me make sure that I'm saying this correctly, but yeah, I believe I only have one page in the book of Judges that was done ahead of this particular one in my journaling Bible. So I am excited to be working with you guys on this this journal page tonight, and just to share a little bit about what I picked up on what I've read so far. And just as I've told you so many times before, I am not a Bible expert by any means. And so when I am sending you information or talking through, unless I'm really confident with a story, I use some really great commentary. And I've talked to you guys a little bit about this. The Enduring Word commentary is my absolute favorite. It's an amazing app. And so a lot of what I do to process through is to go through that and to really go back and forth between a commentary and the scripture. And just, I'll read and kind of see what my own thinking and my own understanding brings. And then I cross-reference with different experts. And I like doing that because, number one, it gratifies for me sometimes that I am understanding things. And then it also obviously corrects me and changes my path for anything that I'm not so sure about. So I encourage you, if you haven't downloaded that, to definitely download it. And also, never, ever, ever be afraid to shout something out to me, because there's often there is something that's misunderstood, or there is something that I interpret differently because of my experiences. And I love to have conversation when we're teaching. So if there's something that stands out to you that you're liking, or that you're relating to, or that you're seeing in a different perspective, never be afraid to just shout it out on here. Or even if it's something you want to talk about privately, I would love to hear from you. So, it's the Bible is so incredible. It's God's living word. We've talked about that. And, we hear that said all the time. It's his living word. Well, what does that mean? Well, what that means is that when I'm reading this, it comes alive for me in my life. And when you read it, the same exact stuff, it comes alive for you. And the other part about this that's beautiful is the fact that it doesn't matter what time period I live in. It doesn't matter what circumstance I live in. It doesn't matter, what my background is. This word is true for all of us. And this word is going to live true forever. And so I just think that's so powerful, isn't it? It's wonderful for us to have this this script to go by, that God gave us this instruction book, and not instruction book in the sense of like a rule book, because I've learned in my as I've matured in my faith and I've learned along my path that God is so full of love and forgiveness. And the more we read, and this is a prime story that talks about forgiveness, not forgiveness, but you think about the fact that Gideon messes up royally when it comes to the end, right? I mean, in the end, he doesn't really leave this great spiritual end to his experiences with the Lord. But that's possible for many of us, that we screw things up. We do. We mess things up. And so to me, it's just a message of hope. And the fact that his story made it. The story made it. He made the cut. And yet he was so imperfect in his own humanness. And he let his success kind of get the best of him. And I just want to learn from Gideon. I want to learn from this story. And I'm excited that you're here to worship with me creatively. We're going to be using some tans and browns in the colored pencils. Okay? And I want to tell you something. This whole entire lesson tonight could be done a gazillion different ways. You could do this whole lesson with colored pencil. You could do this whole lesson with watercolor, or you can follow along with me and get crazy. So we're going to do brown colored pencils. We're going to do alpha stickers. Okay? You might even have footprint stickers or shoe footprint stickers. If you do, you could use those as well. And then we're going to use a variety of blues and greens and turquoises, anything that looks like water. And as you may have guessed it, this is going to be a pretty obvious, not an obvious page necessarily, but an obvious picture that we're working on. You've probably seen it 1,000 times. But I thought it was fun. It's whimsical. It's almost summer. And guys, I live by the water. I visited yesterday, and this is what came to mind because I'm so eager to get on the beach. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about this Gideon guy, okay? Now, he's a judge. Obviously, that's why he's in the book. Major, to me, we see his whole life. Like, to me, we see his whole spiritual journey. That's how I look at it, okay? Because if we skip over here, I've got one of my pages from last year. I think you guys can see this on the screen, but this is my page of my first experience with Gideon, and this was, I think, last year. I'm terrible about dating, even though I always tell you guys, date your pages. Sometimes I don't, but this was at a retreat I was at, and to me, this story spoke to my heart. And this is why, to me, this was a personal page. This is one of those pages that I did for myself and Jesus, not for anyone else. I never taught it. I will never teach it. But to me, this was just a vision that I immediately was drawn to, because here are these terrible Median people, right? They are putting this hard amount of oppression on Israel. The whole story, go through there. Read the story. It's incredible. This is an incredible story from start to finish. But here's the kicker. So here's Gideon. People have died, right? The people are dying. They are stealing their food. They are going hungry. They are in not very good shape. Okay? Now, if you were thrashing wheat, is that what it's called, thrashing wheat? I have to look ahead of here because I don't want to say it wrong, but I think that's what it means. If you were the son Gideon was beating out wheat in the wine press to hide it from the Midianites. So here this guy is, Gideon. He knows the oppression that's coming. He's basically scared to death. And instead of doing the wheat in the fields, he's down in the wine press. This reminds me of the wimpiest little scared guy. And I'm not saying he didn't have a right to feel this way. He did. I mean, I don't want to die either. I mean, I do. I don't mind. I didn't mean it like that. But you know what I'm saying. He was fearing for his life. He was worried they were going to starve to death. And so here he is hiding in the wine press, which there's a whole long history of the wine press. But we're talking under the earth, hiding. And the Lord comes to him. The angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, "The Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor." Now, I'm sorry. Did you just hear that story that I said to you? This guy is hiding. He is not acting as a man of any sort of strength, courage, bravery, or valor. Please, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why is all this happening to us? And where are all his wonderful deeds that our father recounted from us, saying, blah, blah, blah. Read the story. It's incredible. Okay? Oops, I didn't mean to bounce you guys. I got a hat on tonight, so my bill just hit you guys, and you went for a little spin. I get so excited. But it is a vision to Gideon's future. God did not see him in his weakness. He was the son of God. You are a daughter of the king. You have zero reason to hide in fear. You are a warrior. You are a warrior. God already saw the picture. He saw the ending. He knew what Gideon was going to do to save the people of Israel. He knew he was going to be the leader that was going to follow God, was going to trust his faithfulness. Okay, I just got super distracted because Jamie just said, "Are you wearing the pink bright Bible hat?" No, it's just another hat, but look at it. Here, I'll get under the camera. Can you see it? Oh, that's funny. She wants her pink bright Bible hat, so she just distracted me totally with that comment. But here's the thing, girls. We get ourselves in such a tiz, right? We get such a tiz about the right now, and we only see ourselves in this little picture of the right now, when God does not see us that way. He sees us as women, warriors, okay? Even in our weakest moments. Because he knows that we are sword sisters. We are on earth to be the battle for him. Okay, so skip ahead. Now we're getting to tonight. I just had to go back to that because to me, that's like the starting line. This is before he even knows any of this is coming. And here he is saying, where are you, God? Where are, why aren't you saving us? And yet Gideon, he puts Gideon in the position to do the physical work on earth for his glory. Amazing. Amazing. Okay, so if you read through chapter 8, and I would strongly suggest, like if you're reading the small section, read just before chapter 8 where it says Gideon defeats Midian. To me, you just got to read a little bit ahead to get the gist here of what's happening. But basically, and I've got my notes because I want to lead you through this. I'm not going to read it because it's very long. But basically, he's in the middle of this battle, right? And he calls out to, I'm going to say it wrong, Ephraim, the men of Ephraim. It's a place. It's the soldiers. It's the group of soldiers fighting with him. But he calls out to them in the midst of battle. And they now have won. They have been successful. They have defeated the people that have been hurting them. And these guys start complaining. And basically they're like, wait a second here. Why didn't you call us at the beginning or before this happened? Why did you call us in the midst of the battle when half the work was already done? And Gideon's like, come on. Seriously? You're more worried about your own glory and you proving something than for the work that was done? And he uses some reverse psychology on these guys and is like, you know you did great. Like, why are you so worried about being recognized for something so much greater? You already did a great job. So just be okay with that. But the thing is here is they were looking for their own personal gain. They didn't look at this as God led them to success. They wanted their own personal recognition, and we do that. Isn't that so stupid? Instead of giving that glory to God, they were more worried about what they looked like or what their success was. And then in the next section, I'm kind of going back and forth because this is a lot. There is a lot here, okay? They get to this next section and they're traveling. So these guys, this army, this is a true soldier situation, right? They have traveled. They are working their buns off. They are tired. They are exhausted. And they come to this place and Gideon asks them, the Succoth? That's what it looks like to me. I pronounce nothing right. I'm positive of that. But basically, Gideon says, would you please support my soldiers? I'm not asking you to go to battle with us. I'm not asking you to put your life on the line. I just simply need some help for my soldiers. They are tired. They are hungry. And they get nothing. Okay? They get nothing. And Gideon is furious about this. And he basically is like, I'm coming back for you. I am not threatening. I am promising. I am coming back for you. One of the things that I read in the commentary, and I want to read this for you, it's really, to me, I could have gone 1,000 different ways on this page, and I kind of hope, to be honest with you, that some of you go in a totally different direction here. I'm excited to see those of you that don't do this page the way that I'm going to do it, and you focus on something different, because I could have seen 1,000 different pages coming out of this, and here's what this says. If you brethren, this is part of the one of the commentaries. If you brethren and sisters will give yourself wholly to God's work, you'll never get tired of doing it, but you will get tired in it. And that is the truth. That is the truth. When we are serving God, we are serving our inside, the absolute purpose of what we were created to do, to serve God and love his people. And here's the thing. We're going to get tired. We're going to get tired in ministry. We're going to be exhausted. We're going to work, harder than others and not get paid for it many times. And I mean ministry. I'm not just talking about ministry. I'm talking about us as a Christian on this earth doing our purpose. We're going to get tired. But here's the kicker. If we aren't getting tired, is what we're doing even worth it? You know what I mean? This is a really interesting point that he writes here. If you don't, then I should think that we haven't done the work that was worthwhile. So being tired is not such a bad thing. It means we're working hard for the Lord. That's where these guys are at. They refuse, right? So we get we get the promise. He's coming back for him, and he does. He comes back. He is angry. He 100% takes these guys out after they do their defeat. They defeat the kings. They take out Zebah and Zamola and all these. Okay, rise and fall upon us. The man. Blah, blah, blah. You got to read this whole thing. It's a huge piece of scripture. You got to read it yourselves. But the reality is that the end result is Gideon and his army defeat an army much bigger than them, and they do so boldly and confidently because Gideon trusts the faithfulness that God showed him all the times before. That's the kicker. Now, here is where we also see another lesson. When he goes to these people, right, and he asks them to support before they do before they defeat. These people that Gideon is asking help from, and I want you to really hear this, the people that Gideon goes to, the town, the community, and says, hey, my guys are really hungry and thirsty, they were like allies in this. They were their people. Whatever the reason is, there is often going to be somebody in our lives, on our journey, on our path of doing good for the Lord, being in a path that we know is God's calling, we may get discouraged by our own. That's the truth. Our family might not understand us. Our friends don't get the hype, or they don't really understand why we do what we do. And they love us, and they are they want to maybe be there, but maybe they think that they are. But the reality is our own people, because they're human, they might be a discouragement. That's a lesson that we need to hear. That's a lesson we need to hear. Okay, now let's get to the good stuff back here, which I am going to be talking about in our page tonight. So when we get to the end, the people are going nuts, right? They are like, Gideon, you rock. You just defeated, with a small army, you defeated this mega army. We are now saved. The Israelites have been saved. They have been protected. And they're like, we want you to be our king. And he says, oh, I couldn't. No way. I can't do that. I can't take that honor. And he sounds as though he is humbled, and he is just saying nope. And he says to them, let me see if I can read it here. I will not rule over you, and my son will not rule over you. The Lord will rule over you. In the next sentence, he says, let me make a request of you. Every one of you, give me your earrings as a spoil. They had gold earrings because they were Ishmaelites. And they answered, we are willing to give them. And they put a cloak down, and they threw in all of their gold, 1,700 shekels of gold. I mean, what? So I'm not going to be your king because I want to say right now, nope, the Lord is your king. The Lord is your king. And you should only worship the Lord. You should not, I don't want to be in that position, right? Mr. Humble Sauce. No, he's not. What ends up happening is, even though he talks the talk, he does not walk the walk. And this proves to be his downfall. From this point on in the passage of scripture up until his death, and even beyond, and I'm going to talk about that, he is like he's just crumbling. He lets all of this praise and this kind of like unhealthy worship of him and the idol that he forms, which is this, is it an ephod? Ephod? I really need a translator to just like speak the words to know if I'm saying them right. But basically it's this cloak. It's like like what a priest would wear, like a robe or something like that. And he creates this, and it becomes this sick idol, basically, because people are worshiping it and enjoying this worship when they really are not worshiping God. He's taken on many wives. He's living the high life. He's got all this gold. Not good. And it says here, this to me is the absolute kicker. Gideon did great work in the Lord, but he allowed this to get to his head. He allowed the walk to be different than the talk. It wasn't really where his heart was. His heart changed with that fame. And it says right here, as soon as Gideon died, the people of Israel turned again and whored after the Baals and made Baal their god. And the people of Israel did not remember the Lord their God, who delivered them from the hand of all of their enemies on every side. Sad. So stinking sad. Look at how quickly they turned. So sad. It's not, it's hard to say like, oh, this is all Gideon's fault. He screwed up these people. No. The reality is that they're all humans. They were all falling short. And yes, I think to me, Gideon was a humongous, because his heart wasn't where it was supposed to be. He caused others to stumble. That is to me so stinking important for us to remember. Our path is not going to be perfect. We are going to make royal mistakes, but we always have to remember that the choices that we make, even when we don't even recognize it as something specific to do with someone else, our choices do leave a legacy for what happens after. And let us have a legacy of love and forgiveness and of grace. And let's walk the walk together, okay? So tonight, that is what we're going to do together. We're going to paint a very fun picture. So I want you to get your paints out if you can. We're going to start with colored pencil. And we are going to, let me make sure you're on the camera. We're going to draw feet in the sand. It's a little bit cheesy for me, but I'm going to like it. I'm going to try to love it. This is the vision that came, so I'm just going to rock it out. I've seen this painting. You guys might even have a painting like this from a paint party. I don't care. We're going to do it. This, to me, is walking the walk, right? We want to leave our footprints for Jesus. Okay? Footprints for Jesus. I'm going to start a new hashtag, footprints for Jesus. Okay? So we're going to have 2 ovals. Always get the hand warmed up when you do an oval or a circle, because if you do that, it really does help you to draw it a little better. So we're going to start with an oval, okay? And what I'm wanting to do here, I want you to think about this. This is up and down, side to side, horizontal, vertical. We're gonna just tilt this a little bit this way, okay? Just a little bit off. So we're kind of tilting this so that this end is a little higher. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to flip my oval the other direction. Okay? And now, I might have needed to squeeze that down a little bit. But now we're going to use some inverted lines. And what I mean is we're curving into those. This is a little big right here. I'm going to shrink this bad boy down a little bit. Now, once I have that basic, right? You know that this is basic. This would be like pencil work. And I can go in there and kind of make some decisions. And I know for a fact that a footprint kind of comes in a little bit more than that because of our arches. Some of us have higher arches than others. Okay. And we're going to do this in colored pencil anyway, so we're not super worried. I'm just showing you how to draw. So here's basically the shape that we're looking for. And then the other thing is we got to obviously add some toes. And now if you're doing toes, you don't want to let me show you how silly this looks. You don't want to necessarily do this. Looks a little bit too much. So really you're just kind of putting like the circle in because the parts that connect there, what would they be called? Like phalanges or something? Maybe that's just fingers. You're going to just have these here, however you feel that you need to draw them in. Little baby. So there's our footprints. Now we can move on. Now, remember, this is the left. So when you're doing the other footprint, there would be nothing worse than having them go the same direction. So what you're doing is you're sliding this little guy over a little bit and curving in here. So you're going to curve this way, and we're curving this way on that top oval, and then we'll curve the other way. Hopefully that makes sense. And then, bada boom, bada bing, toes, 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 toes. You get the point. There's your off-centered footprints. Got it. First thing I want to do here is to find, I've got so many different brown pencils. Tans, browns, greenish browns, reddish browns, dark browns, whatever you can find. And some tan color. And I'm going to start with the lighter color for sure. With this sandpaper, I'm at a 60 grit. Well, it says number 60 on it. I think that's right. 60 grit. So pretty rough. Now, if you did not have a piece of sandpaper to do this next little trick, you could use like an actual rock. I know that sounds crazy, but you could use an actual rock or something that just has some rough texture. So I'm going to put it under here, and I'm just going to run. I'm laying a darker shade. I'm not going like super dark, but like a reddish brown. This is called sienna brown, for those of you that want the Prismacolor color. And I am just doing my same kind of circles, teach you guys color in circles, and I'm kind of going over it very lightly. And what you'll see here is this beautiful little texture. So right on the side, you'll kind of see a little bit of your pencil will flake off, especially if you do have this heavier grit, but man, does this work well. I did not even plan this. This is sand. This is really sandy. Okay, that's what I was hoping. I was hoping this was going to work for us. So I'm just going to bring some of this sandy texture in all around these footprints. Now, I'm avoiding the footprints. We're going to go back. Obviously, they're not going to stay white. Now, I am going to push a little bit harder here. Right in here, where this kind of would almost act just like a little bit of a shadow. Hopefully, it's kind of darkening up a little bit. And here as well. And then I'll come back up in here, probably in between the toes. We can always color them later. And I'm going to let that sand just kind of dissipate over here into my page, wherever I decide to end the colors. I'm just kind of fading it out. All right. Now, important part. Take the sandpaper out before we do this next part. So make sure you remove your sandpaper. Now, we're going to color these much more intentionally. And what I mean by that is I'm going to be a little more careful, and I'm going to really think about what shapes I really want my toes to be. Now, I'm not going to color these in 100% this new brown. I am using the same dark brown. Let's see what it's called again. Sienna brown. Reddish brown. And I'm kind of doing like these little half circle colors in. 1, 2, 3, 4. I would hate to give us an extra toe. That would not be good. Another one here. Same thing. Boom. Boom. The reason I'm not coloring them in is I don't like to commit. Okay, I don't like to commit to something yet. I'm not there yet. As I am working here, though, I am a little bit concerned that I got a little bit fatty boobladdy right here, so I'm going to actually bring this in a little bit more, and I'll go back and fix the background, but yeah, I definitely just want to see this a little bit smaller in here, I think. Yeah. You guys probably get so stressed out when I color because I really am like an ADD colorer. So I go back and forth often, and I color kind of messy, and then I add in. But I find that coloring messy at first, as long as I'm doing this with good pencils and I'm doing it lightly, can kind of color messy, and then as I build up the tones, it's going to get smoother and smoother. That's why round circles work. They really do. I'm going to come back in here with my sandy color and add into this. Again, I'm not pushing super hard yet. I'm not there. I'm not ready to commit yet. But I'm getting closer. And then I just kind of take a look at it here. And I think about, like, where would the indent be the darkest? Like, where would this be? So maybe, like, more in here. Maybe a little darker. I mean, just think about, like, what does it look like? Look up a picture, too. Like, a real set of footprints in the sand. And see how the shadows kind of work. But obviously, we're not like super crazy realistic here. We're just getting the gist. So I'll continue to do that to build up not only the darkness, but also so as I'm going back and forth on these colors, I can just continue to layer them softly, and eventually you'll start to see it get a little bit shinier, a little bit smoother, and it just kind of looks more smudged together and shadowed than it does like rough and like uncolored, unfinished. So yeah, working in layers, especially when you want something to have like a natural shadowing or fading, it's very important. All right, you get the gist on this. I'll save the other foot because you know I like to move on. Okay, once you have that, you can also go back. I should have said this. Like this one here is dark brown. This, you may come in with some shadows. I don't know how much it's going to make a difference. I don't know that it's that much darker. But you could always add in some darker areas as well. If you get too heavy or it gets too blended into your sandy background, then you're going to take a little eraser and just kind of dab up a little bit. You can also, and a lot of people don't know this, but you can also use rubbing alcohol on a Q-tip to thin out your Prismacolors. I should definitely do that as a little tutorial someday or a little process video because that works as well. Okay, next. I am simply going to be painting water, and then I'm going to use alpha stickers. I found some really cute little yellow ones. I don't know if they're going to work. I'm going to try it. We'll see how this works. But alpha stickers are always good to have on hand, especially when we're talking about, in this case, we're going to be doing some color or some painting. Zoom back out here. And, you know, you could paint on now letters and the palette. My palette is going to simply be a piece of paper. That is how I roll. And I am going to get on my palette here some different tones. And I am very messy painter. I'm warning you, this is not something where you have to paint every little line and every little wave and the little, no. We're going to do this kind of in a messy style. And it's going to be very freeing for us. Some of you it'll be flat out stressful. And you may end up wanting to do this in watercolor. Or you may want to do this with your colored pencils. And you can. That's the beauty. You can do whatever you stinking want. All right, let me get a couple more colors here. I want to have at least a little bit of value difference. So if you're seeing the blues are going to be a little bit more rich. And the greens are more of a turquoise green. And even a really, really light color. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab a small paintbrush. Now this paintbrush is one of my favorites. It's in not the best shape at the moment because I think I must have gotten something stuck in there. Okay. It's a little flat brush but on an angle. I also really enjoy my super duper skinny brush for any details that I might want to have. And then I also have a round brush. So a round brush is... These are actually, if you guys don't know this, these little skinny guys, if you're ever looking for a brush like this size, this detail, they're called liners. So that's how you look them up, liners. And then this is just a plain round brush. I think the round brush and the flat brush are actually going to do me the best right now. So that's what I'm going to start with. Okay. I am not going to worry too much about going over my words. But what I will say is that if you are worried about that, you are going to want to thin out your paint. So you could use this acrylic paint as more of a watercolor paint just by thinning it out and just being super cautious as you go over these. Now, I mean, it's acrylic, so it's going to cover, okay? But it is possible for you to kind of keep this area watered down and to still be able to see through. Now, I'm going to start with the lightest color, and I am not going to stress too much about this edge being perfect here, because we're going to come back through and we're going to add some little white, what are those things called? Like the little foam that comes in on the waves. So that's why I want to get some of this light coloring down in here. But as I work, I'm going to add in other tones as well. And I don't want this to look too, honestly, in my opinion, as a teacher, as an art teacher, I would say to my kids, there's no way to mess this up. There really isn't. I mean, if you're using tone on tone on tone the way that you are here with this acrylic paint, you're going to do fine. Now we're going to grab a little bit of our white, and we're just going to give a little froth. And of course we can be frothy anywhere we want to, really. But the one thing I want to tell you guys is when you're doing something kind of textured, especially with a brush like this, and I'm wondering if I should switch, I want to get some paint on my brush and then kind of dab it off. So it's more of like a dry, this would be called like a dry brush. In fact, excuse me, I am going to take a dry brush, get some paint, and then kind of dab this off. And then I can just kind of go here on the shore and I'll build up this white. I don't want it to just be like a big blob of white. I'm going to do this slowly and just have a little tiny bit here on this edge. And I don't want this to be perfect. Don't just have it in a straight line as far as like straight across. You want to definitely look at what you're doing. Be cautious of every little. If you say as you're doing it, it helps immensely. So make sure that I can hear you guys. And then if I want to take this and come in here as well, I can make myself some little white caps on some of these bigger areas of wave. I guess they would be considered waves. And remember, if the paint is wet, it's going to be blending. That's how we blend, is having paints wet, both paints wet. If it's a dry section, then you're going to really see the white because it's going to just overwhelm and just go right over the top. Okay, so right in there, and we start to just add in some of that white. So that is the way that we can do a really quick impression of our water. We can add some froth. We can go back and color in our other footprint in the sand. And then we're going to take these alpha stickers, and I am going to keep this extremely simple and to the point. Walk the talk. Whatever the talk is, let's not be like Gideon, right? We're going to have footprints for Jesus. That would be another fun thing to put on here. But I'm just going to take my stickers, and this is still pretty wet. Let's see how these are going to work on here. Yeah, they're going to stand out. So I'm going to just use these little yellow alpha stickers to do walk the talk. The other thing is, you know, there's all sorts of alpha stickers, so just look through your stash, see what's going to stand out. The yellow's going to work on here because of the blue. So think about that color wheel. If you have your color wheel, as any good Bible journaling student would do, you're going to have them kind of across or a little bit far apart from each other. That's going to help your letters to stand out. Of course, white and black would do great on this as well. Okay, so girls, I'm so glad you were here tonight.